I'm Heiko Meyerdirks. I'm software engineering manager at Autodesk. If you have not heard about Autodesk, what may be the case, it's the company producing also AutoCAD beside a lot of other products. I'm based in Potsdam, that's near Berlin in Germany, in a small office. The headquarters of our company is in San Francisco and San Rafael. Okay, the staff I'll have here in Potsdam is just 15 persons. We were acquired as a startup and now we're part of the big company. Yeah, that's a big question. Autodesk has a long path, and we have a big portfolio with a lot of desktop software. The industry has changed, or the industry is changing. It's in the process of changing, and of course, Autodesk is part of it. So we also driving this change, because the whole industry is changing from the specific tools for a specific question to become a connected ecosystem. And we, of course, part of that. We have a lot of desktop software, but we have also a lot of services, and we're driving this whole transition. There's, of course, a big question as well for the customers, as also for the software industry, how to do that. Okay, that's a really good question. So for every single product, it may not even be necessary. The idea here is not that we just go in, take our portfolio and try to transform everything we'll have there and just make it a service. What we really would like to do is that we help our customers being successful doing this transition, because in the end, it's the customer who needs that or wants to have it or will use it. So the idea is that we'll look closely what the customers do, that we think of how we could help them being more successful by providing them not just the tools they know, but providing them a connected ecosystem and help them to do that. And when we look closely at what we'll have, what the customers do, we'll try to find the best synergies. And there's, of course, a big question, how we should do that. Should we do it all at once? Should we go in and say, here's the new package you have, or you can take? Or it would be more helpful if we let them work with all the tools they have and try to build in the connected experience in the existing tools and involve the existing tools, so help them doing the transitions. And this is the way we target it. So we want to lead this. We want to come up with new ideas, but we don't want to overwhelm, of course, our customers or take away the tools they have, but to help them going this transition themselves. There's a desktop product, what you take and make a service. And then you have a one-to-one match. We more see it as you say, okay, we'll have a lot of products and we want to provide something in addition. We want to get the customers an additional value. So we try to connect everything they have, all the tools they have, not just having tools, but have an overall solution. And therefore, we of course evolve the products we'll have. So we don't think so much about the desktop product A, desktop product B. It's more, you can think of a thick front end, what's running on a massive machine with a lot of power, or you'll have a thinner front end, what may be on an iPad. All those gets connected. And we, of course, use the services for that. And there's often the idea that you put it on one service, and then you'll have the big Autodesk service. But what you actually try to solve or try to target is to have a lot of many microservices, which is really specific to one specific use case or problem or story. And this service will solve you that. For example, think of data import, pretty common. You'll always have a lot of data from different companies, different products, and you would like to put it in your model or whatever you do. Then you don't need to have a massive service. You just need one translation service and would just do the specific translation from this data format to a data format you can consume. And that's all. And this can be isolated. They still talk to each other, of course, because you may want to render this up front to have it on a thinner client where you can't render because you don't have the render power and you need artifacts. you can look at. Then you pass it to another service, which does the rendering for you. But it has not to be the same service. So it can be disconnected. Also, they're separate. They're running separately, but they're connected. And that's the idea, that you don't put a desktop into the web and let it run there, but that you try to connect all the tiny little pieces you'll have and get most of it. That's a different question, right? You'll have the industry, you have the company, and then you have all the single products. And you'll have to really think hard about who's using that, what's the workflows the customer use, how can you put this single product into the whole connected experience. And there are a few things what really help you is that you have a look at the customer who uses that you see how they make revenue, what they need most, how you can take parts of this single product and connect it to something. So it of course helps if you have already built up something as a company, a service where you can sign in, where you have a personalization, where you add the company's connected experience, and you try to connect this single product to this gradually. So of course there may be a product you can move directly, completely, if this fits to a specific product. But the most products Autodesk deals with are relatively big design products for design tools, and there it helps that you take pieces of this product and try to connect them with other products. And then you gain a lot of advantages. For example, data translation, but there are a lot of other things that you can collaborate, for example, with different areas. For example, you have someone who builds a building, and you have another person who builds the surrounding of the building. They may use a different tool, but here's the big chance that you say, now we can connect those two persons with a data platform. They can share the required information, but don't need to share everything. So you don't overwhelm the person with building the surroundings with a very detailed building information model, but you just pass what's relevant to this person. And this is the best, we think that's the most helpful way how we can integrate a single product into the whole ecosystem. Oh, right, yeah, that's also a thing, but it's a little bit different to the workflows. What we just told is also, of course, the important part is how to offer that. A classic way to offer software was that you go in a shop or to a dealer or you go to the web, but you purchase a single license of a product. That's relatively easy, so people missed it a bit, honestly. That's okay, so we don't overwhelm them. But in the end, it's not very flexible. So you'll have to buy a whole thing forever. Of course, there was a service contract, so you can call support and get an update. Still, it's still that you buy a whole thing. What really helps, since we're talking not just of this monolithic desktop products, but we talk about a connected experience, what's always online, or at least most of the time, you can move your way how to purchase the software, so that you more think of the set of tools you'll need at a specific time. So let's say 2 years ago, you just bought one single software, and then after 3 months, you realize you need another one. You buy the next one, and the old one is still there. Now you can just go in and say, okay, for the next 3 months, I'm in the conceptual phase, so I'll go in and rent the conceptual tools. And then you get them for 3 months. And at some point of time, you realize, well, I'm now not in the conceptual anymore. I don't need this pool conceptual tool anymore. I need more a design tool here. Then you rent that, and you don't rent the other one any longer. So if this is nicely designed, you don't have to un- and reinstall all the time. You just have your license, and you rent the specific parts you need, and you get them enabled, and you can use them. For example, you still keep the sharing abilities, but you move away from more the conceptual thing, and now you do really rendering or whatever. What also helps is this is now personalized. So you don't have to think of, I'll have to buy 20 boxes of this software anymore. You can really say, this person in my company as a customer from Autodesk is just working on a design area. So we rent him the design product or tool and the collaboration tool. The other person is more doing the high-end renderings. So we add some here that he is enabled or entitled to do some high-end renderings, but we don't have to buy it for the other person. So it's a mix of term-based, personalized experience, but really fits to your needs. That's a really shift in the way that especially bigger companies have to think, because bigger companies used to an IT department, they just purchase a big set of Office, for example. And we face this situation that we offer now a way that the customers can personalize the way they use software. But of course, we also want to help and need to help bigger companies that their ecosystem is supporting that their way of that's for the customers, it's possible to do this personalization. So there's a big potential here, but there's a big shift in it as well, because it's not just the engineers or technical persons or presentation persons, it's really the IT department, the whole corporate level, what has to change in that way. And that, of course, takes more time and more effort. But so it's also a transition we'll have to support the customers to do. Okay, yeah, that's a good question, because we already touched it a bit. We talked a lot about how to offer that, not so much about the technical detail, but of course, when you're a technical person, you'll think a lot of the technical challenges. So how we could do that if you lose collections and all technical stuff, where to store the data from a technical point. Is it quick enough to download from the web, but there are a lot of more questions if you think of a corporate. And let me start with the corporate level for Autodesk, because we of course also face these challenges. So let me try to explain what we may face a bit, and you can adapt that to other companies and our customers maybe a bit. So there's a lot of things. For example, when I just said that we changed the offering, you may have 1 million of contracts in your backend. So they are all perpetual licenses. What you do with those contracts, you will have to pass them over to term-based, or you just forget them all and ask them to do new stuff. That's a lot of effort, of course. And it's a sensible area, because the contract is something very personal between the company and the customer. And there's a lot of legal issues as well. No one really likes to speak about them so much, because people tend to try to ignore them, at least the technical persons I work with, but they're still there, of course. So there are a lot of legal things to be solved for different countries. Well, there are still a lot of more things. For example, if you think of that, you'll have to bring in all your sales people, you have to bring in all your partners, you have to bring everyone who's part of this to understand what you do, to explain the advantages and help them do the thing. Maybe the customer's happy with the solution, Autodesk is happy with the solution, but you can't sell it. Could be. So you'll have to find a way there. It's often underestimated. At least I have underestimated it. Because I tended to think of the technical solutions, and then we had a great solution. Then we realized, well, but now we want to apply that, and it's not that simple as we thought. There are more things. For example, you may have an operation department where you want to deploy all the things to services, like the services to different service data centers. You have to coordinate that. For example, something like a release date is something that dramatically changes in the way what it really tells you. So there's also a lot of things to take care of when you do this as a company. Data is something sensible. So we talked a lot of the advantages of this transition, but it's also it's new for the people and the customers, and it's also something where you have to trust a lot. When you take your data on your local machine, then the only thing what can happen is that someone steals your machine, and then it's gone. If you think of uploading your data, for example, in the cloud, a lot of people are pretty sensible. But it's not just uploading the data in the cloud. If you do a data translation in the cloud, you're still uploading them and downloading the results, right? Even if you don't store it there. And this is really something where people are worried, because it's often data is really the key piece of value a company has. So there has to be a lot of trust from a company like Autodesk and the customers, that they trust the company, that everything is protected, everything is safe, never get lost. And this is something we'll have to slowly build up. And I would say everyone should build up slowly, better slowly than fast, to make sure nothing goes wrong. And on the other side, there's also a flip side. There's all the logic now as a service. So if you, for example, ship a desktop product and that you just get binaries you can't read, if you protect them correctly, it works, but no one can really see what you coded. But if you have running a lot of services and you start deploying, for example, the services somewhere else than in your own data centers, they're running there as your intellectual property and could be hacked. I don't say any customer does that, definitely not. But it's also something that you, as a company, you'll have to be aware of, that when you put in all your business logics into services, and you really have to think hard where you deploy those services. So that's the other side. So it's trust on both sides, and this is a long way to establish that.